Now our next stop would be at Mirum for our Behind the Brand Buzz episode.
We will talk about AMFI and the mutual fund Sahi campaign, with which we have been associated for the last 7-8 years now. We will take pride.
And that paper said that in a few years' time, the CMO would spend more on technology than the CIO. So that's like a huge sea change.
If there was one word for me to think when I think of Zoho and think of Sri Ravikumar, it's respect.
What are the key differences in a B2B and a B2C marketing?
When you go and approach a B2B client, then you're actually looking at that one client, that one industry that they are serving, and a solution for that specific problem only.
With, I think, a B2C brand, it is usually more human, more vulnerable. It is more about adding to your life, complementing your life in certain ways.
Right.
Whereas B2B is about
I
impact.
think a lot of organizations today are wanting to bring in efficiency, want to drive in productivity. And I think that's what marketing automation does.
What's the one good thing about being a marketer and one bad thing about being a marketer?
What you're doing throughout the day is manipulating societal psychology to sell.
You're making people feel like they need it, even though they don't need it.
Yeah, of course.
We are all set. Now our next stop would be at Mirum for our Behind the Brand Buzz episode. Over there, we'll be discussing more about B2B and B2C marketing. Are there really any distinction, or are the lines blurring very quickly? So let's go find out.
Sanjay and Mihir, thank you so much for taking the time out today. And I know for a fact that Mihir has just, been traveling and he's here only on Tuesday. And you've been pretty occupied, you both. But I really, have to thank you both for taking the time out.
You're most welcome.
A pleasure.
So the first thing that I wanted to tell the two of you is, the first time that I thought, okay, let's do this show called Behind the Brand Buzz, and I was scouting through India's top agencies. And so there were a few agencies in the lineup, but none of them got confirmed. The first one to get confirmed was Mirum, and it was through Sanjay. So I had actually reached out to him, and from there it got confirmed. And so I'm so happy we are doing it today.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Yes.
And I think, as you were talking earlier, I'm so happy to do it with Zoho because at least, I'm stealing his lines, but you have so much respect for your founder. And, it's a pleasure to do this activity with the Zoho team.
Right. Thank you so much. The first question that I want to ask you is, why marketing? You could have literally chosen anything, but why did you want to get into marketing?
To be honest, when we got started way back in 2009, it was not seen as marketing.
Right.
In fact, we actually got into the business as a specialized social media agency. And why did we even see it as an opportunity? 2009 was early days even for social media. It was just coming of age.
Right.
And there was already a lot of advertising agencies, a lot of other players. But did we see still an opportunity for us as a newcomer to get into the space? We did, because what we sensed was that, at least in the original traditional way that social media was and was meant to be, where it is today is a very different space, but it was supposed to be that softer conversational piece with the consumer, not your in-your-face advertising and marketing that, come buy my product and all. It was not supposed to be that.
Right.
That there were enough and more people already doing that. So where we saw the opportunity was that they may not get it because they are still so tuned to being in the selling mode all the time.
Right.
But what you really want and what's coming of age as social media is where a consumer wants to engage in conversation, in community, in interactions, and ask questions, get responses, and sales may be far away,
Right.
but you still need to do it. So you need to have that softer conversational feel. and which is what we thought that that's where we will get it to. That's the difference we bring to a brand.
I think you thought through that way back. I think it was very traditional, like you said. And then slowly, maybe because of the mindset that you had before, I think you guys have been able to adapt to how it has changed and evolved now. And that's why maybe you are also able to be one of the leading marketing agencies as well. My next question is for Mihir. Mihir, if you see Mirum's positioning per se, right? It's completely on MarTech. So every digital agency has its own positioning, but Mirum focuses a little more on MarTech, understanding that there's an evolution of technology, and if we don't catch up to it, we might fall back. For you to take this stand, how important was it, and what were the changes that you had to bring in to incorporate this?
So on this MarTech space, so we are a full service digital agency, right? So we provide digital, solutions to our customers across the, right from digital strategy to social media strategy to creative to production to media to MarTech, right? So we are a full service agency. Specifically on MarTech, you're right. That is something that we realized very early on is going to be an important, offering in the mix that we have. What happened is that we had already started experimenting with MarTech products or using MarTech technologies for customers very early on, 2010, 2011, what were the absolute, nascent stage of MarTech, one would say. But by the mid 2010s, around 2015 or 16, there was a paper that came out, which came out by one of these consultants. And that paper said that in a few years' time, the CMO would spend more on technology than the CIO. So that's like a, huge sea change from what was the norm back then, which is that CIOs and CTOs were spending on technology.
Right.
And that really got us thinking that, okay, if with the, digital was taking up a bigger and bigger pie of the marketing, a bigger and bigger piece of the marketing pie. Obviously, digital is something that is enabled because of technology.
At some level, we actually say that, besides getting love from the CMO, we'd love to get love from the CFO of the client. And the CFO should feel that money spent on us is well spent.
Right.
And he would see it well spent when he sees results which are actually at their bottom line level, that, we contributed to that. So given that context, MarTech was a natural fit, because while, social media, and digital and all creative was all good, but MarTech ended up, getting us into that zone where we could see very measurable, definable results that we could deliver to the client.
So, coming back to working as a marketing person, what gives you that adrenaline rush? Like, no, I want to come and I want to do this. So there will be different functions in marketing, obviously, but you would have your own favorites, and there's just one thing that when you do, you just get that happiness and excitement and rush. So what is it for you? And I would also like to know it from you.
If I can get data that we were able to move the needle for the client in terms of, say, sales or lead generation or something, and which came about with a very strategic thought process, a planning activity, and we kind of zeroed in that let's do this, and then followed up with great creative, and we delivered. And that report is what gives me the high, that when we talk about Amphi and the mutual fund Sahi Hai campaign, with which we have been associated for the last 7-8 years now. I mean, we will take pride. I mean, I won't say that we take all the credit, but we are very much part of a team, including the client and including their other partners, which have grown significantly the base of investors in mutual funds in India.
Right.
And I take pride in that. The industry has grown thanks to what we have helped achieve.
I think in addition to running that successful campaign, you also, marketing in a way, played a very dominant role in breaking that stereotype that mutual funds is always risky, don't take it. But the messaging and the way it was projected to people, I think that kind of broke the stereotype, and that's really difficult to do.
I mean, there are multiple challenges where the industry was not growing.
Right.
From the point of time that the industry has been around till the point that this campaign started, the growth had been fairly steady and flat.
Sanjay mentioned Amphi. We've had cases where we used to work with a electrical two-wheeler maker, and 20% of their sales were happening through the online campaigns we were driving. We work with real estate companies where we are able to actually sell houses basis the campaigns that we are running. We did marketing CRM campaigns where for QSR brands, where we were able to drive lakhs of customers who've lapsed, so they're not eating with us anymore. How do we get them to convert back? When we see those numbers actually flashing in front of us, that's really, I mean, there is nothing comparable. The Amphi campaign, I mean, it's a communications campaign. It's great creative work that we are doing. We've seen examples where we do great creative work and that helps in consumer awareness, which we measure. We are able to track whether consumer awareness for a brand has gone up. Nothing is as pleasurable as that. There's something which comes very close, which is we are the whole marketing and digital marketing, and this space is what we call as a VUCA world, right? Everything is changing every single day. Things are different, and what that does is that for most people in our teams, doing work as per your KRA is like table stakes. You have to do stuff over and above and going above and beyond what is in the KRA, what is in the brief. And then when they do that and something fantastic happens because of that, maybe a client gives us a special appreciation, maybe something happens which nobody had planned for, and that outcome comes out, that comes very, very close second or probably at the same level, which really makes me get up in the morning.
Okay, wonderful. I know both of you have been following works of Zoho and also of Sridhar. So when was the first time you heard about Zoho?
I can't remember the exact date, but of course it's long back, from early days, and as being part of the so-called digital ecosystem in many ways, you're always curious about brands which are making a name for themselves, especially brands which are making a name globally and have Indian roots, Indian founders, or it's an India base, and Zoho caught the eye for that reason. And there's always pride associated with such success stories, and like CRM and all the service offerings which Zoho offered, they came to light in those days, probably at least a decade ago, I suppose. I can't remember the exact point of time. But over time, I think as we have sort of learned and ended up discovering more and more, and especially your founder and his story and how uniquely he has kind of created some the way he's moved his base to a small town, and engaging locals there, creating other opportunities for the locals with a very good clarity about why he's doing what he's doing. And it's not just to make some noise, but like he really believes in that. And following him on Twitter, amazing words, like all the time you end up learning something interesting, some good perspective which you can draw inspiration from. So it's been if there was one word for me to think when I think of Zoho and think of Sridhar Vembu, it's respect. I mean, I think it's been like a fabulous story to look at, and with pride from being an Indian enterprise and an Indian founder.
Got it. And Mihir, your thoughts?
So I think first time was similar to what Sanjay said, but I want to talk about the latest thing that I did, which is the fact that Zoho and Mr. Vembu, they are investing in the semiconductor manufacturing, and I think that's just absolutely phenomenal. I feel semiconductor is not just technology, it's also about like national security and how much dependence you have on external companies and organizations. And that's, the respect that Sanjay spoke about. It's also about inspiration, right? I mean, somebody who is not from the background of doing hardware, and semiconductor is like the most complex hardware you can ever build. And then saying that, okay, I'm going to someone who's very successful can easily say, chalo, I'm hanging up my boots, folding my vesti and, going for a vacation. But he's not doing that.
Right.
He's saying that I'm going to do something which is going to pull me out of the comfort zone. Absolutely phenomenal. So I'm absolutely inspired by Sridhar.
Okay, thank you so much for that, and thank you so much, Mihir. It was wonderful chatting to the two of you. Now I'm going to, since we spoke a lot about MarTech and how Mirum has been, pioneers in inventing over technology in marketing, I'm going to have a chat with a couple of other stakeholders too to delve deeper into it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have Naila, National Creative Director of Mirum, and Anand, Director of Brand Management, join us. I have a lot of B2B and B2C questions for you guys. So if you can explain a little bit much in an easier term for our audience, that would be amazing. Okay, so the first question would be for you, Anand. I have seen that Mirum is associated with the larger, brands in B2B for BFSI, for example, BFSI companies, and then you also have customer-facing popular B2C brands. What are the key differences in a B2B and a B2C marketing?
I think the key difference is really into, probably you'll have to go into deeper depths to understand the customer needs from a B2B perspective. While there is a lot of consumer experience that you could base your communication on, but in a B2B sense, I think the real value comes in terms of what value are we adding to the customer through our solutions. Is it really going to grow his business? Is it going to add revenue? Is it going to reduce cost? Is it going to make it more, his process is going to make it more efficient? Is productivity a concern for him? So you actually really go into the final problem statement, identify that need or problem, and then devise a solution.
Right.
Whereas on the consumer side, I think it's largely in terms of creating that entire experience, that creating that entire thing about the brand, and it's not one to one. I mean, while there is social media and all that, but here it's largely very tailor-made, custom-made solutions that you would look at. While you may have a single solution which does certain things, but when you go and approach a B2B client, then you're actually looking at that one client, that one industry that they are serving, and a solution for that specific problem on it.
Right, got
That's
it.
the real distinction that I will look at.
Right, got it. And Naila, if I may call you the queen of B2C branding. Okay, so the first question to you is, what is a design language like for a B2B and a B2C?
I think building on what Anand said, I think B2B is about building trust, building thought leadership. It's also about purpose-led or impact-led solutions.
Right.
And therefore the design has a certain gravitas to it.
Yes.
And this could also be, I believe that for a lot of B2B clients, this could also be like a pitfall.
Right.
Because digital allows you to be different things for
Right.
different people.
Right.
It allows you to be vulnerable. It allows you to be human.
Right.
But if you, so I think, but the creativity, there are no hardcore swim lanes for
Right,
both.
right.
But with, I think, a B2C brand, it is usually more human, more vulnerable. It is more about adding to your life, complementing your life in certain ways.
Right.
Whereas B2B is about impact.
Right.
So I think that that kind of separates both. A B2B needs to be solution driven.
Right.
It needs to be a problem solving, because if it doesn't, it's not solution driven, it's not problem solving, then it's not helpful at all, right? The purpose of a B2B is to kind of create impact or solve problems. So.
Right. But do you still think that, like you said, humanization of a creative or a copy is still needed for B2B? Because it's somewhere, there's a misconception.
Absolutely needed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we have very successfully done things like that.
Okay.
We have very successfully brought in quirk and humor in
Yeah,
B2B
yeah.
brands, because somehow I think we fail to sometimes register that the person who's consuming this content is human.
Also human. Yeah, I was going to tell that. Yeah.
So we fail to understand.
Yeah,
We feel
yeah.
that we are two robots speaking to each other, but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So and the biggest, I think, one of the biggest things to learn or to understand as a B2B brand is that, especially on digital, you have multiple touch points. So if you start the conversation and you start in a humorous way, in a quirky way,
Right.
in a human way,
Right.
you always have a email, You always have a white paper. You always have ways to take your business in a more meaningful and a more serious manner,
Right.
a more informative manner. But the first hook that you go out with, or the first piece of communication, doesn't need to be like full of information or full of knowledge.
Right.
I think very often B2B want to kind of deliver their entire message in the
Yeah.
first touch point.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't work.
Yeah.
In fact, to just add, I think we always think that B2B, matlab, the fundamentals are very different and from a branding perspective. But if you ask me, they are all the more important in
Right.
B2B. For example, I mean, a brand should have a personality. A brand should have the value systems and the DNA. And that, in fact, has to get more showcased, because if a client of mine is going to buy a product or subscribe to a solution that I provide, is going to go back to, what does it stand for? What are those brand credentials that they carry? So it's all the more important that we actually bring in and imbibe those. So humanization actually comes from brand values, right?
Correct.
It's the behavior.
Correct.
So we will need to bring in that human touch, that feel, that everything, because finally it's getting consumed by another human. But obviously, the what his pain points are will be addressed to the solution.
But there's also this misconception that B2B marketing is just so boring. The strategies will be boring, and the design will be like use only 4 primary colors. Don't use more than that. Keep it very simple. But this has been there for a long time. But I just don't see that it will be any more relevant for the way
No, I think
consumers
it's
being-
changing.
Right.
I think it's changing all the time. In
Right.
fact, I think I had attended a panel, I think 5-6 years back, and we had spoken about the fact that with digital and social coming in, there is a two-way conversation. So having this kind of persona where I know what I'm saying and you have to listen to me is going away.
Right.
And when a brand is vulnerable, when even a B2B brand is vulnerable, is human, is conversational, it is easier for them, and no business ever has only highs.
Right.
They have lows.
Right.
There are mistakes. It's easier for you to apologize and move on. It's easier for you to put your case in front of the audience if you're human.
Right. So there are so many brands out there. Beauty, fashion, you will not just find one, but you will find many. And the consumerism, I mean, the way the target audience for them are also so diverse. Now we are shifting more towards Gen Z and all of that. So for a brand to cut through this clutter and also kind of pave their own distinctive way is such a big task, especially in B2C. So how do you think brands in B2C segment would be able to cut through this noise?
Okay, so I think more and more people are on social platforms.
Right.
More and more brands have joined the bandwagon. Each person now has multiple options to choose from, and that is when you see how brands kind of use platforms intelligently, how they evolve, and the conversation moves from a feature-led conversation to purpose-led conversation.
Right.
So if you look at a Dove and you look at Real Beauty, now that is evolution of a brand because they had the opportunity to have conversations on social, right?
Right.
Now when I choose something for my hair care, I will, or this entire thing paraben free, sulfate free, or there is no nasties or cruelty free.
Right.
Now, so therefore the conversation has evolved beautifully. It has moved from just that lowest common denominator, okay, this is what it does to you, versus this is what it does to the world.
Right.
So I think that social has given this beautiful opportunity for brands, and therefore cutting through the noise is very purpose-led. I'm seeing with a lot of brands that the conversations they are having around the world, around the people, and therefore around the brand, the more evolved they are, the more inclusive they are, the more aware they are, I think the higher they fall into the consideration set of the people. Especially if you look at Gen Z.
Right.
I think they are very aware of the world. They are very aware of the environment. Because they are spoiled for choice, they are choosing intelligently.
Right.
And they are making informed decision. So this is the opportunity where a brand needs to work harder. Earlier it used to be easier for the brand. They had to come on traditional media and they had to say, oh, we're great, we're fantastic, and there was never a dialogue.
Yeah.
But now the brands need to work harder and they need to ensure that they become the first choice of the people because of the reasons other than just the product benefit.
Right.
So I think that social gives this beautiful advantage for brands to evolve, and a lot of brands have evolved well.
to, I think today brands want to enter conversations.
Right.
So the way even social has allowed that is that today if you want to be a social first brand doesn't mean that just putting up something on social media means that you become a social enabled brand.
Right,
No,
right.
you have to actually figure out what conversations are happening, what are people talking about, what is your audience talking about, and try and see if your brand can actually get into those conversations, and then what is it going to have? Is it going to have a meaning in their life?
Right.
Is it really going to impact them, impact the surround that they are in? And then that becomes what you stand for. I think today brands are actually gone, I mean, like they said, what you stand for. And I think if you look at the genesis of some of the brands that are in the FMCG space, they've gone beyond the traditional feature benefit कि मैं ये करता हूँ, वो करता हूँ, ये धोता हूँ, ये करता हूँ. No, it's gone beyond that
Right.
now. You know,
Yeah, if you look at it, it's not just conversations that have become two-way. It's also a responsibility. I think
Absolutely,
brands have to take
absolutely. Yeah,
responsibility
absolutely.
for what they are saying, and they have
Yes.
to live up to their promises. I think so. Yeah, answerability or responsibility has increased.
Even the campaign curation, it goes through so much speculations. Today you just cannot do an ATL campaign or a print ad without it being, dissected by every audience. If it doesn't reach out the right messaging, or if it is not socially applicable, then you have to be ready for a social storm coming back. So yeah, I think that's about B2C then. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was wonderful having you.
Thanks. Thank you.
So I have Anand here with me to play, no, not the carom, but we're going to play the Mythbuster segment here with him. He's been kind enough to grace us with his presence here, and I've been troubling him a lot, pulling him in here for this. How good are you with carom?
I play pretty well.
Okay,
Decent.
let's
You
see.
want me to? I hope so. Not bad.
That was nice. I'll just give it my shot. I am not really good at it, but I'm just gonna give it a shot. I'm very sure it might not come properly.
For all you know, it just goes in. Mara.
Shit. No. So yeah, you guys know my skills now. Okay, let's get into the segment. I have the first question for you. Sending emails to your entire list every day will keep your brand on top of their mind.
I wish. I wish. I think we all wish that, we keep saying the same thing over and over again. Sometimes it becomes a nuisance value. I think that's what we need to be very, very off, that we don't become a nuisance value to the customer or a prospective customer, because sometimes all these things matter, right? How desperate, in fact, the more you do, the more you end up looking desperate and seems to be, and in fact that shows your vulnerability as well. So I think this absolutely, you have to be relevant. I think the way we should look at email marketing is that, the frequency matters, but I think more importantly is what is it that I am putting out in an email as a solution. So we have to use email marketing as a real solution that is providing an answer to a problem that the client has highlighted, number one. Number two, email also allows you to personalize it, so you can actually make it a lot more personal, make it more one-on-one when you are conversing. And third is in terms of the relevancy, right? So it has to be relevant to that business, to that audience that you are talking of. So yes, I think we wish that the more you do, the more, but I think that's not
true. Okay, got it. Next question. My business doesn't need to automate marketing tasks because I've hired staff for that.
I think that's a nice one. So I think somewhere we try and confuse between automation and human intervention, and we think that it all can be replaced or cannot be replaced. I think the reality is they have to go hand in hand. Marketing automation has a very different purpose and function that it is fulfilled. So it really brings in efficiency. I think a lot of organizations today are wanting to bring in efficiency, want to drive in productivity. And I think that's what marketing automation does. The same person who could be doing this, while when something like a tool or an automation tool can actually take care of, why would you want that person doing that when that same person could be doing something more better, adding more creative value or business value to the organization? So I think marketing automation has a role, humans have a role, so it's not, they both need to coexist. And more importantly, I think with marketing automation, you also bring in efficiency, but also it gets in scale.
Right.
There's only so much that an individual can do. Whereas marketing automation can do that same thing much faster in a more efficient, scalable manner. I think that's what I would like to say in terms of that being critical for any organization.
Right, got it. Thank you, Anand, for debunking myths for our audience.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we've come to the fun segment of the entire episode. So we do this with every agency, and we have tried different games with them. And for you guys, I have it very, very, very simple. So for that, I firstly want to say I have young talents who are planning to dominate the marketing world right after this fun segment. So I have all the young talents of Mirum join me for this segment. So for you guys, I have the question. It's just a simple question. You guys can go one-on-one and then you can answer, okay? So the question is, what's the one good thing about being a marketer and one bad thing about being a marketer? So that's the question. Yeah, you can soak it in and you can share your thoughts.
So one good thing about working in marketing is, you wake up and you feel energetic, or like I'm going to do something nice in my day, something meaningful. The bad thing is what you're doing throughout the day is manipulating societal psychology to sell.
You're making people feel like they need it, even though they don't need it.
Yeah, of course.
They're like, don't man, don't. We're like, no. People are like, you have to. This is the best thing in the world.
Yeah, the other day I saw an ad for a banana peeler. I'm like, why would we need a banana peeler? Like,
I think being in this industry is like being on a perpetual trek. You're always onto something. So the best part is it's an adventure. The worst part is the ditches of this trek. Matlab, when your idea gets rejected, it's like, because we are sensitive people in this industry, we don't like rejection. But yeah, that's a heartbreaking part. But otherwise, imagine getting hit by a thought in a bumpy auto ride to your office and working your days and nights to make that baby of yours see the light of the day. Wow, beautiful. That's the beauty of this industry. Otherwise, the sensitive part is heartbreaking.
okay, I think one thing that I would want to add is you would have only spent a quarter time ideating it, but you would be spending a large portion of time explaining why that idea works. I think we have to give awards to marketers, guys, for that particular skill.
And then the client will say that, you need to remove that important essence of that idea and then post it. And that's how it ends up making us memes.
Okay.
See how we manipulated all of us into making this a ranting session.
Yeah, so I have a very interesting take. I don't think people relate to it or not. You're like an expert now. We are in understanding brands, ki your competitors ka this is their color, this is what they will use, this is messaging. But now the backfiring is the definition of shopping for you changes. For me, it has. When I go to a shopping place or a clothing place, I'm not in the mind to shop. I'm like, what marketing skill they're using here, so I will buy this t-shirt, or what marketing visual, how's their designs and posters, and like how's their ads on the phone, the same company. So that has changed for me. Just kind of like a backfire to me. Like I used to be an innocent guy, I used to enjoy shopping, getting things, but now everything's very technical. When I see any brand, it's about trying to pick up things. People say it's a positive, but if you just think about brand color, brand messaging, brand ideation all the time, then you know something is wrong with you. You need help.
You used to skip YouTube ads, but now you don't.
Now you don't. You're like, okay. I'm like, oh damn, I'm going to recommend this to my boss tomorrow. I saw this ad yesterday, and we have to do this.
I don't want premiums because I want to see the ads across platforms.
Okay, yeah, you go next.
So I'll keep it very short actually, and I'll start with the worst part. It's like Friday briefs, Friday evening briefs actually, and the best part is when your campaign actually goes live. That's the best feeling ever, and it goes live on time. That's even better. And adding to that, you can just scroll reels across the day saying it's a research, which is a good part. And you can, and it also a bad thing because your screen times are just
9 hours, 10
yeah,
hours,
10,
12 hours.
14 hours some days.
Where when you're given the entire like 1 month to plan a campaign, then you might not be able to do that great, but that last minute mein that idea that just comes in, and you just have, you know, that deadline, like you just have 1 hour and then you have to take it live, and that time the way your brain works, man, that's it. I think that's
we call it brainstorming.
yeah.
The approvals on Friday evening.
Best thing ever.
Okay guys, thank you so much. You guys have been really amazing at this segment, and thank you for joining me. It was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a wonderful time with Team Mirum. We also got a very different perspective of how B2B and B2C marketing is being perceived amongst the consumers, right? And that way this episode has been very, very insightful. I hope you guys enjoyed it.